So welcome back to DBC Inc. Facebook Live. We have a special treat for you today. We are going to change things up a bit. And so we have the captain himself on the show, hosting the show. He's going to steer the ship today. I don't think it's because he thinks that I can't do it, but but we are super excited to have him on the show. So what we're going to do is for the first couple of minutes, if you are joining in, please do introduce yourself, say who you are, what you do, and then we have a couple special guests on here with us today, so we want them to introduce themselves too. But first, I'm going to turn it over to your host, the captain, Mr. Dave Burgess.
Yeah. Hey, all right. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in and watching the Facebook Live today. And so we're doing a special series this week. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're going to be highlighting some authors and some books that have a lot to do with social emotional learning, have a lot to do with creating psychologically safe learning spaces for students. And so we're super excited to talk about them. And I see some people maybe that are jumping in already. So Nicole, thanks for jumping in. Oh, I see one of our winners. So is Rocio. Wasn't she one of our winners last week?
He was, yeah.
Michelle, hi there. Thanks for joining in. Really appreciate it. And so again, just go ahead and share who you are, where you're from, and we'll let a few people pop in here before we get going. Monica, Sketchnote superstar.
Welcome.
Jumped in, yes. Hi, Hawley. Thank you for joining as well.
Oh, South Carolina.
That was another winner. That was another winner last week, Hawley Stewart.
Stacy, Tech with Hearts, author, popping in. Fantastic. So we love seeing you all join the chat. We are honored today to have two guests with us too. So we have Emily and Pam joining us today to talk a little bit about our topic. And the reason why I'm hosting today and not Tara is because although Tara is our director of marketing communications, runs our Facebook Lives, she also happens to be one of our authors. And so sometimes that means that she's so busy talking to other authors, she doesn't get a chance to talk about her own books. And so as one of our authors, we're going to put her in the hot seat today and let her talk about her Be Real, which is her manifesto that she wrote for us. And we might even drop in a comment or two about Cannonball In, which is her picture book, her children's book. And so two books that Tara has written with us. And so we're excited to talk with her a little bit.
Yeah. So it looks like some people are receiving their Flipgrid tints.
Ooh. Hey, Megan. AP in Virginia. Right on. I see Kathy has popped in here. Who else am I missing?
Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, Lisa.
Lisa from Missouri?
The Motown. Awesome. We're excited about all of you joining. Maybe, Dave, while we're waiting for a few more to jump in, we should get Emily and Pam to just introduce themselves, tell us who they are, what they do. For anybody who doesn't already know them, everybody should know them.
Yeah, so both Emily and Pam are rock star members of the community, rock star educators. So Emily, tell us where you're from, what you do.
Yeah, well, hi, everyone. I'm Emily Francis. I'm a teacher of ESL, English as a Second Language, here in Concord, North Carolina. So I'm super excited to join you here again. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Pam.
Hey, I'm Pam. I am an instructional coach in South Carolina and just a diehard fan of my DBC books. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so I've got a chance to meet both Emily and Pam, which was fantastic, both at conferences.
Yes.
And so Emily, maybe it's been maybe a year and a half or so, 2 years maybe, I don't know. But then Pam just recently, right before all this shut down, we were in South Carolina at a conference together and got a chance to connect and talk a little bit. So I've got a chance to meet both. Tara, have you met Emily and Pam in person?
I have not, either of them. So sad.
I long for that day.
You have to get off this social distancing and pandemic stuff so you can get out there and meet Emily and Pam.
Yes, we were supposed to meet at DBC Pirate Con, but it didn't work out.
Bummer.
Yeah, that's a sad topic.
Yeah, don't bring that up.
I'm still mourning it.
Absolutely. Hey, so one of the disclaimers for this series this week, I think, is that these books are not about you needing to be a counselor or a therapist for students who are going through struggles. But but a lot of the books do have things about social emotional learning and about creating psychologically safe places for students and how you can be a support. But obviously, we don't consider ourselves professionals as far as therapy, and there's going to be times where you need to step back and say, you know what, this is something that you need to talk to someone about who is trained in this. And so that was one of the things I wanted to share to begin with. But Tara, your book, Be Real, you shared some, let's be honest, there's some tough stuff in here. And you've had some dark things. And you were very vulnerable and courageous in sharing some of those things. And so maybe I want to start by asking you what it was like. Some of this stuff, if I'm not mistaken, you had never publicly shared before. And so what was it like going through that process of putting that stuff on paper and knowing that everyone was going to read that?
Yeah, so that's kind of scary. Well, Dave knows what that was like because I wrote the entire book. And then right before it was time to publish it, I called Dave and said, well, first I texted him, and then he made me call him to tell him in person that I didn't want to publish the book. And I was like, I just changed my mind. I think maybe writing it was just like therapy for me, but I'm not really sure it's going to really help people. And maybe I don't need to share this whole story with the whole world because in my mind, writing the book, I thought, I would share these topics and these real stories, hoping that either teachers who had never experienced abuse and just a rough home life themselves, then they would be able to maybe better understand some of their students who might have those kinds of experiences. Or I speak of in the book, even working with adult learners. So later as a coach and as an administrator, I dealt with adult learners who were dealing with very serious traumatic backgrounds. And so while I don't have a degree in trauma, I lived it. And so I just wanted to share my story from like a first person perspective and hope that maybe educators out there would be able to just feel it, really feel it, and be able to maybe relate to their students a little bit better. But by the time I got the whole thing written and read it a few times through the editing process, I just called Dave and was like, I didn't even call Shelly. I was too scared to tell her, but I was just going to tell Dave first. I was like, I can't do this. I just can't send that out into the world. I think it's too personal. I think there's too many pieces. But the editors kept telling me, like, this is great. And they kept making me go deeper. And so he gave me the speech. He wrote my foreword. And it's based off of that, me telling him I don't want to publish it. And basically told me that I needed to slay that dragon of fear and put it out there, because if it felt that emotional and if it felt that scary, then that means it's probably really going to do something for other people. And so while it was super scary to put it out there into the world, I've only received positive feedback from it. And I'm super grateful for that, because I know that some books don't always get positive feedback, and I'm waiting, and I'm sure I won't always get positive feedback. But one of the things I've learned from most of the readers, and even when I keynote and travel around the world and talk about it, is just people can relate to real experiences. While they may not have experienced exactly what I've experienced, they've experienced fear, and they've experienced worry, and they've experienced some kind of trauma in their life at some point, and or else they've had students and learners that have, and they feel like that this is a tool that they can use to kind of help better relate to them. So I'm grateful in the end that I put it out there, but man, I was not like super gung-ho about it when I put it out there at the onset. In fact, I was super sick on release day.
So I can remember that time perfectly well. I can remember that phone conversation. I can remember you saying that you were done. You were out. You're like not going to do it. And I can also remember saying that wasn't going to happen. That we weren't. That's not the way it was going to go down. We were publishing this book, and you need to face that. And so I'm super super glad that you were willing to do that. And I know it has had a big impact on a lot of people. In fact, two of the people that have enjoyed this book are with us right now. And Emily, you were on our show just last week, I believe it was, and you shared your story, and your story is incredibly inspirational. And I know you've shared in the past about Be Real and its impact that it had on you and your willingness to share your story. And so maybe I thought that you could speak a little about the impact on you.
Of course. And like Tara was saying, I'm really glad she got the guts to be able to publish this book and impact us as teachers, because we have also those experiences. Like you say, you've lived it. And sometimes we think that those experiences are not worth sharing. But after reading her book, it was in 2018 that I finished reading it. And even then, I didn't think that my life experiences were worth sharing it. And then after reading her book, it's just empowered me in a way that, hey, my life experiences are core. They are motivation for me to inspire my students and find my purpose. So I literally closed the book and I was just bawling and thinking, oh my gosh, I need to take my life and my experiences and follow my purpose. So it was just like there were sticky notes everywhere in that book, because it really gave me the strength to see my experiences and my failures and my lived troubles to be able to impact my classroom.
That's incredible. And the feedback that you received on the Facebook Live where you shared your story and your journey was just incredible. And I think people have been truly inspired by your story as well. And so, thank you so much for having the courage and the vulnerability to share your story. I think it's had a big impact on people. Pam, as an instructional coach, not the book doesn't just talk about Tara's background and story. It also has stuff that's helpful for educators in their classroom and instructional coaches and all that. And I know it's been a book that's impacted you. Maybe you could speak a little bit to how it's impacted you.
Yeah, and I'm right there with Emily. I mean, in the very beginning of the book, I'm crying, and I was laughing at myself because I'm like, I'm reading an educational book and I'm crying. But it's part of what really made me connect with it. And just, and I think Lisa actually said that she felt like she was like your bestie, like when you're reading it. And that's what you feel when you read these, and you can totally relate. And like one of the quotes that you had was, each of us has a tremendous and unique gift to offer the world. And when we allow anything to stand in our way for sharing our gifts, we neglect ourselves, and we cheat the universe. And I loved that quote, because it's just, we all have a purpose. And I love how you really touch on that in the book. And as a coach, I saw it as that relationship part really is important. And when you look at coaching books, sometimes they're very data specific, and they're very procedural, which it just leaves out the human factor of it, which is what I love about Be Real. Is it's the people come first, and that is so important. And you really can't help people until you actually see them as people. So I love the book.
Yeah, thank you. So Tara, one of the parts of the books, you talk about book snaps and your journey with book snaps, and that was one of the things that first kind of sent you out into the world and got some notoriety for you is the book snaps. But I think that one of the things that people miss is that there's some social emotional stuff with the book snaps, and some stuff that has come forward. Teachers who have used book snaps, who have then learned some stuff about their students that was very significant. And so maybe you could talk about, I know there's one story in particular about book snaps and what was learned about a child that a teacher shared with you. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, I want to thank the two girls, and I know Emily like slipped off, but she'll come right back, I'm sure. We have tech difficulties sometimes on these, but when she comes back in, I'll just put her back on there. Yeah, first of all, I wanted to tell the girls, thank you so much for your comments. So it's so true, like what Dave said when he wouldn't let me quit, and I'm glad he didn't let me quit, because I'm not normally a quitter. But for some reason with this one, I was just like, sometimes being vulnerable, actually every time being vulnerable is not easy, as much as I preach it. So REAL is an acronym. We didn't really talk about that. Before we go to book snaps, I want to talk about that, because Book Snaps fits the real acronym. So the real acronym is being relatable, exposing a little vulnerability, approachable, and learning through life. And I feel like being real, especially right now, like in this distance learning situation that we're in, I mean, being real is the one thing that we can do right now. Like, we don't need a special app. We don't need a special tool. And it's the one thing we can do always as educators, as humans, is we can just keep it real. We can show ourselves relatable, expose a little vulnerability, show ourselves approachable, and always be learning through life, because that's really just the meat of being a human. You know, no artificial intelligence is going to ever replicate that entirely. There's just no way. I don't think so. Not with all your background, your experiences, your talent, strengths, all those things. So Book Snaps was, the birth of it was so strange, because it was just like my son was addicted to, thank you, Jennifer. My son was addicted Snapchat, and I was over Snapchat, but I wanted to figure out a way to use it for awesomeness. And so what I learned is that if I could take, I think Emily's coming back on. Let me add her back in and get her back on the show. Here we go. We got her now.
I'm so sorry. I lost it. I'm outside.
So Book Snaps was like a way to use Snapchat for awesomeness. So you just take a picture of the book, and then I wanted to use the emojis and the text features for annotation. And when I tried it for the first time, I sent one out to Twitter where I was reading Teach Like a Pirate, and I had just joined Twitter, like no followers. I think George followed me because he got me on Twitter, and that's about it. So I like tagged Dave, and I was super excited because he was the author, and I certainly didn't want to discredit the author in any way. And I wasn't really sure if I was breaking copyright, all these things. Anyways, I sent a Book Snap out to Twitter, and that's what really just started me on this connected journey. Dave saw it. He was excited about it. I ended up guest blogging, later writing a book. But one of the things I didn't realize with Book Snaps is, first of all, when you speak the kids' language and you allow them to use something they love with the content, they share so much of who they are. One of the things the kids really started doing was connecting to the characters in very real ways. And they were using this language that they love. So I think with the emojis sharing their emotions, or the Bitmojis, it wasn't so scary to share like what they were really feeling. Well, one kid really started doing this, and he just kept using these really depressed, sad-looking emojis and Bitmojis. And one of the things, his teacher pulled him aside and talked to him. She was like, "Is everything okay?" Well, it turned out he was relating to that character in a very real way, and everything wasn't okay. In fact, he was to the place of wanting to had a very well laid plan to take his own life. It was so tragic. And when I read this email, I just couldn't believe that Book Snaps saved a kid's life, you know.
Wow.
I mean, he got him the help that he needed. His parents actually emailed me, and that's what the email title said: Book Snaps saved my son's life. And
Wow.
I was just trying to figure out a way to use Snapchat for awesomeness. Never did I imagine that when we allow kids to speak the language that they love with the content that we're teaching, there's no telling how real they will be with us. And that's what happened with Book Snaps. And so Book Snaps is more than just a comprehension strategy. I think anytime we're able to tap into the passions and strengths of our students, we're going to get that realness that comes out of them.
Yeah, I think what Book Snaps did in that case was it created this space for them to feel comfortable to share something that they weren't sharing through traditional means, right? It made them feel safe to do that. And so I think that's a super important aspect of it that came out. By the way, I see more and more people commenting. Thank you so much for all of your comments. Just so you know, at the end of the show today, we'll be selecting someone from the comments to win a copy of Tara's Be Real. And every day this week, that's one of the things that we'll be doing with it. We'll take the author's book and we'll give it away as a prize for people that are commenting in this on the Facebook Live. So thank you so much for all those comments. Another aspect of the book, Tara, that I think sometimes gets overlooked is the Innovators Compass and your twist and tweak of the Innovators Compass. And I see Pam as the instructional coach nodding your head with that one. And so I think that the Innovators Compass is something that I would love to hear you talk a little bit about how you use that in your work.
Go for it, Pam.
Okay.
I want to hear how you use it in your work.
This is one of those things, and I've got my little, I do my own little sketch noting when I read these books. And the Innovators Compass was one of my favorites because as a coach, just having a structure when you do meet with teachers, I just loved the structure of it because it added the personality to it. And it's one of those things, like I've only tried it on a couple people, but that's my goal for next school year and the beginning of the year. Now that I've had 2 years with them, they know me, and I could always still get to know them a little bit better. That's one thing that I'd love to get into with all the teachers I work with, because I like focusing on the new teachers, the teachers that I might have a plan with that we already set up the year before. And then you also have drive-bys mentioned in your book, where you can touch base with those people. Because, I'm in a K-8 school, so we have a lot of teachers, and there's no way I can help everybody. But having the Innovators Compass questions, and I'd have to show the book to really see the structure of it. But there's a sequence of questions that you ask, and they're timed, so people can't overthink their answers, but it really gets to what they really want to work on themselves. So you're kind of coming up with a plan, but the person that you're working with is actually the one coming up with that plan, and you're just there to help them get through it. So, and Tara, of course, you could add on to that because you have that all spelled out nicely in the book.
Well, I put it over in the website. Over in the comments too. If you're interested in Real Plus the Innovators Compass, it does work with all. It works for coaching with adults, but Lisa Toebben is also on here, and she's used it with her high school students to get to know them at the beginning of the year. And it really, really helps with, it's just a way of asking questions. So you start in the center, and the people are always in the center. And then the first question is, what is your current reality? And you always ask the question personally or professionally, because every time you open it up personally or professionally, that's where you're getting into that realness. And you're also bringing it into the content. So if you're talking about the students, like it could be personally and also at school, in a school setting. And so what makes you feel like you just rock the day? It's always great to know like what it is that people value and what makes them feel like they're doing a really good job. Because if days are going crappy, you want to try to put some of those things in place if you can help it. And then what are their big dreams, those big juicy dreams that they have not yet to accomplish? You just want to know how, like, what is it that they want to do in life? And then the last thing is, what will they cannonball in and try? And so the greatest thing about the compass, it's a way of asking questions, and it's a way of asking them non-threatening. They're very open-ended, and they can just blurb out anything. They can write it all down, and then you can kind of work with them and see, how can I help you reach some of your dreams? Let's set some goals. Let's set some next steps. So it's great for coaching. It's also great for working with students. I've used it on my son when he was going to college. It was great for helping him find his first job. And so there's just all kinds of ways that you can use the compass. I would like to shout out Ella Ben-Ur. She came up with the idea of the Innovators Compass. I added the real piece and made the questions more fit the real acronym. But if you want to use it in content areas, she uses it with Genius Hour. She uses it with project-based learning. You can check out her website, innovatorscompass.org.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've seen lots of great feedback with people using the Innovators Compass. And I think that's between, the book snaps gets like all the Twitter love a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
But the Innovators Compass, I think, is one of the really powerful things that's in the book. Part of sharing your story and being vulnerable is all of a sudden you realize that you're not alone, and other people start to say like, oh, wait a second, I have a story like that too. And like, for example, one of the guests this week is Shelly, my wife, and she's going to be sharing, I believe she's going to be sharing some of our family's struggles with mental health and some of the things that we've been through as a family. And one of the things that we've noticed as we've shared more about our struggles with mental health is that all kinds of people have contacted us and said, hey, you know what, like that's happened in my family too, or I have a story just like that. And you realize, oh, wait a second, this is much more widespread than we ever imagined. It's just that nobody's talking about it. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you talk about it, then people are like, oh, me too. That's happened to me too, right? Mm-hmm. And so Emily, I was wondering, as you've shared more and more about your very, very inspirational story, have you had that experience of people saying like, oh, thank you for sharing that. I have a similar story.
Yes, and definitely that's where the power comes in, to be able to share your own experiences and to really think that your experiences make you who you are. And I think that's what makes you impact others, because you really take that experience and you own it. Like Tara said in her book, take those experiences and own it. And when you really grasp onto those experiences and you share with others, it really influences. And then you come back and say, hey, I have that same story, or hey, my story is even worse. And they start embracing their own story. And I think that's where the power is when it comes to finding your own purpose, that you help others find their own purpose as well, right? That's what your book is about. And when you talk about the actions, I think one of my words for 2019 was actions. And I took it from your book, because once I started owning my own experiences, then I started sharing that salting, right? That people around me. And seriously, it's amazing how other students have come up to me and have shared that, hey, because you shared it, I'm going to share it as well. And it's healing. It's healing. It really helps you heal.
I, if you don't mind, I might comment on that, but I think that is so true. And hearing other people's stories, it's probably one of my favorite parts of traveling around and speaking, is afterward, having a big long line at my book table, but also, I mean, that's great to be able to sell your books, but it's the stories that they come up and tell me, and they say, thank you for sharing your story. And in the keynote, I only share a couple stories. I mean, the book's like way deeper, but thank you for sharing your story. Like, that empowers me to want to share my story. And maybe it will, that makes me also realize that maybe this wasn't an unfortunate situation I was in, but it was actually a situation. And I really believe this. Like, I went through all those things as a kid and I came out alive, which is a miracle. And I think it was for a purpose, and it gave me new levels of empathy to be able to relate to people. And I think if we ever can just take our learning experiences as that, like, it's not, oh, woe is me and pity me, but it's like, look at all these things I was able to overcome by influential people like teachers and coaches in my life that gave me motivation, that now I can be able to share some of those overcoming experiences with others, so I can help them to be an overcomer too. And like you said, it's healing and it's empowering.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I think one of the big problems is there's been such a stigma around mental health and mental health issues. And so when we're more open and talk about our struggles, then it helps to destigmatize the issue overall. And other people are more willing to share. Other people are more willing to seek help and, say, hey, you know what? We have issues, we have problems. And it's not just, people look at Twitter or social media in general, and sometimes there's kind of a filtered view of life where people are sharing the highlight reel of their life. And so then other people look at that and say, oh my gosh, like, that's not what my life looks like, and they feel less than. Yes. And so I think it's important, in social media as well, to say, hey, you know what might appear to be perfect on the outside, it's not. We're struggling too. And then I think that honesty and that authenticity is super important in social media. I'm curious to hear what you all think about social media and kind of that highlight reel that often gets shared.
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, I could just share. So when I finished reading your book, I was thinking about, okay, because your book focuses on tweeting and blogging and being yourself. And so at first I was looking at all these platforms and all these people up in platforms. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be like that. I want to be up there. But then after reading your book, I realized, hey, I don't need to look up there. I need to look here. I need to own what I have. And I think that's important, that yes, it's good to have those people up there that we look up to, but I think we need to look at ourselves and make sure that we are good with ourselves to be able to impact others. So that's the way I look at it. Like, it messes up with your head when you think about other successes and you want their success, and it really crushes you when you really can't do what they are accomplishing. But when you look at yourself yourself and you value your experiences, then it's so powerful to impact others and your own self.
It's so
I'd love
true.
to add to that.
Go ahead.
Because one of the things that I wrote down after reading your book was like, as far as if you strip one's title, money, possessions, and status, you're merely humans with a real story. And even if you didn't go through something traumatic, because I don't think I had anything traumatic growing up, but we all have experiences that make us who we are today, and the people that impact us that, you know, like you talk about multipliers in the book, just everyone has a purpose. Everyone that you meet, whether it's good or bad, it just, you know, it just makes you who you are. And just sharing that story, whether it was traumatic or not, it's a huge part.
I think that is so very true. And one of the things that you guys were mentioning, and Emily earlier, is just like, it's kind of a similar thing that Dave mentions when people pitch books to us. Like, it shouldn't be that we would be able to put a different name on that title. Like, no one can ever put anybody else's name on my book, right? It wouldn't make sense because it's my story. And there's my story mixed with strategies for how to help serve our people. But it should be like that in life. You know, we shouldn't have to try to look up to someone else so much that we're patterning our lives after them. But when you tell your story, Emily, no one has a story quite like yours. Like, it is so incredible. It's so moving. Pam, same. Maybe it's no trauma, but you've gone through these cool experiences. You've gone through these different roles in education, and only you can tell your story. And that's what being is all about. It's about embracing whatever that is. And to me, that's what social emotional learning is all about. It's about embracing all of your own strengths, talents, and experiences and becoming the person you were meant to be. And it's hard to do that because I think comparison just kind of creeps in. We're humans and we kind of want to be something that we're not. It's just like what people do. But the truth is, if we could just be real, I think people really look up to realness.
Right. Yeah. And I started looking, like, for example, Twitter and blogging. So once I finished the book, I started thinking about actions. Okay, what am I going to post on my Twitter account that is going to impact others? What am I going to blog about that I know somebody's going to read and impact others? So taking up, once I embraced myself and I embraced my experiences, I started using Twitter to influence others on my perspectives, my points, and yes, use social media for something healthy, not to turn somebody else down.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so Tara, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was on the Cannonball Inn, you wrote a picture book for children. But one of the interesting things I've noticed about it is that I think maybe it's just as helpful for adults. And so I think that there's a lot of adults who are nervous about those people on the side of the pool that are judgmental. And they're up there at the top of the diving board and they have this opportunity in front of them and they're a little scared to dive in too. So how has it been to see the fact that even adults are resonating with your children's picture book?
Yeah, super exciting. So when I wrote that book, first of all, writing a children's book is so fun and so challenging. I would tell Dave all along the way how this book is so different. Like, to write a good picture book, it's really hard to do. And especially, like, my goal was to make it fit for ages 8 to 80. And I know he's heard this phrase a bunch of times, but the goal was, like, I want to write a book that fits for people ages 8 to 80. And I really think it's probably anybody with a heartbeat. But I love that adults read it to their kids and then they message me right afterward and they're like, okay, I'm totally about to apply for that job, or I'm definitely going to start my blog tomorrow, or I'm cannonballing in, I'm doing it. And it just makes my heart so happy to see that people are able to resonate with it, because the truth of the matter is there's so many things out there that we dream big and we want to jump, and we watch, like Emily said earlier, we watch jumpers. We watch people out on Twitter doing all kinds of cool stuff. And we sit over there and we're like, just like me in the pool in that book, that was based off a real story. I was just watching the cannonballers. I wanted to go over there, but I just oh, they're so cool. Like, I wish I could go over there. But finally, with encouragement from my dad, the dad who raised me at that time, and he just encouraged me to go over and just jump. And he showed me how to do it. I didn't do it at first. And I faced a lot of inner fear. And I think this is what we do as humans. And then I faced the dabblers, the beautiful girls sitting on the sidelines, not wet hair, fully makeup, just judging everybody that jumps, and they sure as heck ain't getting in the water. And I think that's what we deal with. Like, we deal with people who look on at you trying new stuff, and the more you put yourself out there, just know you're going to have critics. Like, we have some at DBC, and I have a lot of them. But that's part of it. You still jump, you still cannonball in, you still make waves, and you still swim up to the top because you're not going to let yourself drown. And I think that is just a message that all of us need to hear, because if we all just cannonballed in on what we want to do, there's just no telling the ripple effect we'd have on the world, on the people who saw us. And there's no telling, like Emily and Pam both mentioned, who we would inspire in the process, because people are looking at you. They're looking at you, Pam, and they're like, let's see what she does. Oh, yeah. She's going to do that as a coach, like especially teachers, like she's doing that as I'm cannonballing in. I'm going to try it too. And I think there's just a lot of people out there waiting for you to jump. So it's up to you. Like, you're going to cannonball in, or you're just going to sit on the sidelines and watch the jumpers. And I say, you weren't born to sit on the sidelines and watch the jumpers. Like, you were born to jump.
Hey, so that's absolutely true, and I love I love when a children's book also has a message for the reader as well, for the adult. And if you think about some of my favorite children's books, like some of the Peter Reynolds books and things like that, it's like I'm just as inspired after reading it maybe as the kids are, and I think that makes it wonderful. Hey, Emily and Pam, so I didn't think about it when we invited you to be on here today, but you mentioned it beforehand. Both of you already, even though you're in different places, work together. Why don't you share with us what it is that you two do together?
We do moderate PD for You and Me. It's a Twitter chat on Saturday mornings. We do that with, luckily, Teresa Gross is the one that started it, and she needed some help to keep it going. So the three of us have, I don't even know how long it's been now. Do you know?
About a year, a few months, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So every Saturday morning. So we chat all the time. Just this is the first time we've actually talked in person, kind of, sort of. And that was totally by coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tell what kind of topics, what kind of subjects do you cover in PD for You and Me?
We could eat random topics. We do get participants' perspective. So we ask, what would you like to talk about? And then depending on the feedback, that's what we created our list. There's 2 topics, I believe, that are hot, that we don't change those. Like blogging is one of them. And Pam and I are always mentioning Real EDU because blogging is in the book. So we're always tagging Tara. And what's the other one? Books. What am I reading?
The book share. We do our book shares with just whatever we're reading. And again, we always tag our DBC books. So I think one week we actually had somebody ask us if we worked for DBC Inc. No, we just have a lot of
older books.
I think I have 31 behind me. I counted earlier, just out of curiosity.
Well, you got me beat there.
Wait, 31?
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. Don't you know that we have over 100?
Yes, but I buy them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yes. Well, I won 2. About 2 weeks ago, I won 2. So I got 2 coming on the way. Woo!
That's awesome. Hey, so one of the things that we definitely have noticed is the importance of these connections. And like you two have connected through Twitter. I connected with Tara eventually first through Twitter. And so tell us where can they find you, Pam and Emily?
Well, my Twitter handle is Emily Fran ESL. So that's my Twitter handle. You'll find me there any minute.
And I'm Special Techie. So Special TECHIE. And yes, I'm there all the time. And
I always have to remember that.
All that.
Yeah. And as Tara has shared over and over again in these programs, please feel free to reach out to us. Please feel free to reach out to people in our community. We're only a DM away. We're an email away. You can find us. We love to collaborate. We love to connect with people that are in the community. And so, Tara, as we head to the end of the program here, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share about Be Real?
No, I'm just so excited about, you ladies sharing like how fit for you and how it's worked for you. I think everyone just finds a different way to take what's in Be Real and apply it to their work, because like we said, it's like part memoir, part strategies to be able to do work as an educator and really just as a professional. I think because I've served in multiple roles, it kind of works for a lot of different roles. And yeah, I'm just excited to be able to give a book away. I think we should give, since we talked about Cannonball Inn, we should probably give one Be Real, one Cannonball Inn. Then we can let Emily choose one, and we can let Pam choose one.
Oh yes, that would be awesome.
In the comments. So if you've not commented yet, while I'm talking right now, you should probably comment, because Emily and Pam are about to choose somebody to win, and then whoever they announce, we will just, unless you want to choose one, Dave.
No.
Perfect. Okay, then we will mail that book to you. And good for you. They come straight from my house, so I'll sign it for you too if you want that. So yeah, this is exciting. I thank you for sharing your thoughts, and all the people in the comments. Like, you guys have just killed it on different ways that you've used Be Real, or if you've not read it before, you're saying how you might use it and might use book snaps or Real plus the Innovators Compass. Remember, we are just a DM away. We are just an email away. I tell people that all the time, and I really believe that. And Dave was one of those ones for me. So when I met him on Twitter, he saw my books now for the first time, right? And I was like, oh my God, he's a real human. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like freaking out. Who knew that he would be my boss and like a mentor to me like later in life, and not very much later, like just a couple of years later. But at that time I was like, oh my God, he's a real human. Like, I just couldn't even believe it. And but we're really just real people on the back end of these pages, and we're really here to help you, just like Dave did for me and does for so many. Like, that's what we do.
Totally real, like so real that even like my dog is sleeping on the floor right there.
You keep it real at DBC. My sister never thought a book snap would land me a job at DBC Inc., but I mean, I guess essentially it did.
Nice.
By the way, I do want to point out the little bit of a, I don't know.
Yeah, I've got yours, David.
Oh, darn it, y'all beat me up.
Always love those author shirts. All right, so the pressure is on. Pam, you are up. So I'm going to have you choose someone to get a copy of Be Real from the comments. So who is going to get a free copy of Be Real by Tara Martin?
I've got Lisa Toebben.
Oh, you know what? Lisa Toebben already has one. I gave her
that one. Okay,
Tara has Be Real.
Then let me just randomly pick a person that I know didn't have that.
Lisa's like, what? You just took away another Be Real from me? That's right, Lisa. We just took it away. We just snapped it right from you.
I just gave her one and signed one. I promise.
Oh, really? Let's see. Oh my gosh, so many people on here. I know they've got it. Monica doesn't need one, right?
No.
Oh, here's some that says would love one.
What's that?
There's one at the bottom that says would love one. Fingers crossed.
All right, then we'll go. Angel? Is that Angel?
Angel.
Oh, got the request in there just in time. So get that Be Real. And then Emily, Cannonball Inn.
All right, I'd like for Carly Spina to get one if she doesn't have one. So go ahead and comment, Carly, and let us know if you have one or not.
Carly, let us know if you have.
Carly, do you have a Cannonball Inn book? She doesn't have one.
She doesn't have one. Woo!
Carly is someone I met recently at that conference as well. So
she's super awesome. Yes.
So fun. So fun. Well, Carly and Angel, I'm going to put my email right here, but it's easy, at Tara@DaveBurgessConsulting.com. And if you just email me your mailing address and your information, I'll be sure and send you those signed copies of those books. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on them.
Thank you so much for everyone who's joined in and is watching, and thank you for all the comments. Thank you to Emily and Pam for being special guests today. Tara for giving up the hosting duties for a second and being in the hot. So thank you so much. And Tara, as right before we sign off here, can you give us any teasers about what's coming up for the rest of the week?
So for the rest of the week, it's going to be fun. We do have another like author with a special guest, kind of like what we did tonight. And then we will have just some authors on. One day we'll have Shelley Burgess on Thursday. So you want to tune in every day at 3 p.m. All of them are going to be at 3 p.m. But on Wednesday is a special day because it's just PLN peeps. So just PLN peeps talking about books that have helped them social emotionally, either personally or professionally. And we'll be giving away multiple books on that day because it's not just an author on here. It will be me hosting and then just people who have read our books and have resonated with them. So yeah, we just have some cool things happening each week, Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tune in and we're going to talk all things like realness, social emotional learning. Remember, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we are just trying to share with you some resources that we have and what people think about them.
Awesome. So I hope you all will join us to check out those programs. And tonight is TLAP Chat. TLAP Chat is being hosted by Matt Miller tonight. Matt Miller talking about the new book, Tech Like a Pirate. Matt is incredible. He's awesome. And so we hope that you'll jump platforms over to Twitter at 8 o'clock Central tonight and join us in TLAP Chat. And so thanks again. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.